I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window of my office, my fingertips tracing the cool glass. Below me, the block buzzed with life, the block I now owned. The hum of morning traffic mixed with the distant hiss of a street vendor's cart, a soundtrack that felt like victory. My silk blouse clung to my shoulders, soft, expensive, a quiet reminder of how far I'd come. On my desk, my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it until I saw the name. Tyler. My cousin. The same cousin who once took my house, smiled while doing it, and left me with nothing but my suitcase and a hollow ache in my chest. My thumb hovered over the screen. Part of me wanted to laugh at the timing, part of me wanted to throw the phone across the room. I didn't. Instead, I let it ring, the vibration pulsing through the room like a dare. I turned back toward my desk, where the latest property contracts were neatly stacked. The ink still smelled fresh, the final paperwork that had just made me the legal owner of this entire block. The irony wasn't lost on me. Tyler had taken one house. I had taken everything around it. I pressed accept, my voice calm but steady. Tyler. There was a pause. His voice, thinner than I remembered, finally came through. Can we talk? I smiled, though no one was there to see it. Oh, we're going to talk, I whispered, mostly to myself. Hearing Tyler's voice pulled me back years, to a night I'd tried hard to forget. I was 23, sitting cross-legged on the living room floor of the only house I'd ever called mine. Mom had left it to me, her last gift, and I had worked double shifts just to keep the lights on. I thought family meant safety. I thought Tyler meant safety. The night it happened, the air smelled like old paint and the cheap takeout we'd ordered. Tyler sat across from me, papers spread out on the coffee table. He had that easy grin, the one that always made me trust him. This is just a formality, he said, sliding the documents toward me. We can't afford to lose the house over unpaid taxes. I'll take care of it. You just sign, cuz. I remember the lump in my throat, my hands shaking. Why can't we just set up a payment plan? I can work more hours. You've already maxed yourself out, he interrupted. His tone softened, but it carried weight. This is temporary. You'll still live here. It's just in my name. I believed him. God, I believed him. The next morning, I came home from work to find the locks changed. My clothes were in a trash bag on the porch. Tyler wouldn't answer my calls. The betrayal cut deeper than any eviction notice ever could. I spent that night in my car, clutching the one thing I hadn't lost, Grandma June's locket, a tiny silver heart that held her photo inside. She used to say, "Don't let where you sleep decide who you are. Build your own roof if you have to." Somewhere between the sobs and the cold dawn, I made a promise to myself. I would never be at anyone's mercy again. The next day, I walked away from the house. Walked away from Tyler. Walked away from the girl who let someone else decide her future. That was the last time I cried over him. Starting over was brutal. I rented a studio apartment the size of my old bedroom, with peeling wallpaper and a faucet that screamed every time I turned it on. The first night, I sat on the edge of the thin mattress and stared at the ceiling. It felt like failure, but deep down I knew it was the beginning. I worked 3 jobs that year, waitressing during the day, cleaning offices at night, and running deliveries on weekends. My feet were constantly sore, my nails chipped and ragged, but every paycheck I tucked a few dollars away. I stopped telling people how I was doing. Tyler and the rest of the family assumed I was barely surviving. Let them. The turning point came at the cafe, where I worked. One of our regulars, a sharp-dressed older woman named Margaret Ellis, used to come in every morning for black coffee and a blueberry muffin. She always sat at the same corner table, laptop open, phone buzzing with constant calls. One slow morning, she asked me why I always looked so tired. "I'm saving up," I said, sliding her coffee across the counter. "For something bigger. I just don't know what yet." Margaret smiled, and it wasn't the polite kind. It was the kind of smile that saw straight through me. "Ever thought about real estate?" That single question changed everything. Margaret became my mentor. She showed me how to read property listings, how to talk to investors, how to spot a deal before anyone else. The first time I walked into a bank to ask for a small business loan, I thought my heart would beat out of my chest. I bought my first tiny duplex 6 months later, a sad, crumbling place no one wanted. I fixed it up myself, scraping walls until my fingers blistered, painting late into the night. The day I rented out both units, I sat on the porch and cried, this time from joy. From there it snowballed. One duplex became two. Two became four. Margaret taught me how to leverage equity, negotiate tough, and hold my ground in rooms full of men who didn't take me seriously, at least not at first. I kept everything quiet. On social media, I posted pictures of coffee cups and sunsets, nothing that would give away the empire I was slowly building. I didn't want anyone, especially Tyler, to know what I was becoming until the day I was ready. Years later, when I signed the final deed that gave me ownership of the entire block, I slipped Grandma June's locket over my neck and whispered, "Roof built, Grandma." And I meant it. When Tyler walked into my office that afternoon, he looked smaller than I remembered, not physically, but in presence. The swagger I used to associate with him was gone, replaced by a nervous edge. "Nice place," he said, glancing around as if he couldn't quite believe what he was seeing. My office was everything I had dreamed of when I first started. Wide windows that let in golden afternoon light, dark wood shelves lined with contracts and awards, and a single framed photo of Grandma June on my desk. A fresh vase of white lilies filled the air with a subtle sweetness. I leaned back in my chair, crossing one leg over the other. "You wanted to talk?" He hesitated, then sat across from me. His hands fidgeted against each other. I didn't know where else to go. Things have been bad, really bad. The house needs repairs I can't afford. Taxes are overdue. The bank's talking foreclosure. For a second, the old me, the girl on the porch with the trash bags, stirred inside. But I stayed quiet, letting the weight of his words settle in the room. "You remember that house, right?" I asked softly, tilting my head. He winced. "I know what I did was wrong. I was young and stupid. I thought I was doing this smart thing, protecting it for the family. But then, you changed the locks." I cut in, my voice calm but sharp. "You let me find my life in garbage bags." He dropped his gaze to the floor. "I can't undo that. But I need help." I thought maybe. I stood, walking toward the window. Outside, the block stretched out like a living memory. The corner store I owned, the renovated apartments I'd poured my soul into, the very house he was talking about sitting right in the middle of it all. "You thought maybe I'd bail you out," I said, turning back to him. "Do you know what's funny, Tyler? That house you're worried about losing? It's already mine." His head snapped up. "What?" I smiled, slow, measured, the kind of smile that comes after years of swallowing pain. "I bought the mortgage last month, along with every other property on this block. You're sitting in the office of the woman who owns everything you see out that window." The silence that followed was delicious. Tyler's mouth opened, then closed again. His face went pale. "You own it," he finally said, almost whispering. "All of it," I confirmed. I walked back to my desk, resting my hand on Grandma June's photo. "You took one house from me, Tyler. I took the whole block." He sank back in his chair like someone had cut his strings. I let the moment breathe, every second stretching like honey. This was the part one had waited for. Not revenge, but clarity. He was finally seeing me, not as the naive cousin who trusted too easily, but as the woman who had built something unstoppable. When I spoke again, my voice was steady, controlled. "So, cousin, let's talk about what happens next." Tyler didn't speak for a long time. He just sat there, staring at the floor like it might open up and swallow him. When he finally looked at me, his voice was small. "So, what happens now? Are you going to kick me out?" I took my time answering, sitting back down and folding my hands on the desk. "I could," I said honestly, "and no one would blame me. But that's not what I want." His brows furrowed. "Then what do you want?" I leaned forward, my tone firm, but even. "I want you to understand what it took to get here. I want you to stop thinking you can take shortcuts and call it survival. And I want you to earn the right to stay in that house." He blinked at me. "Earn it?" "Yes. Here are my terms. I ticked them off on my fingers, slow and deliberate. First, you're going to get a job. A real one. Not some side hustle that burns out in 6 months. I don't care if it's humbling. I've scrubbed floors at midnight. You can handle a 9 to 5. His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Second, you're going to pay rent. Fair rent. Not because I need the money, God knows I don't, but because you need to feel what it's like to invest in something instead of coasting off someone else's effort. He nodded slowly, absorbing every word. Third, I said, softening just a little. You're going to stop running from the family. You hurt me, but you also hurt yourself. You isolated yourself, let pride make your decisions. That ends now. You're going to rebuild trust, one step at a time. Tyler swallowed hard. And if I don't? I stood, walking around the desk until I was right in front of him. Then I sell the house. And you'll pack your things, this time into boxes, not trash bags, and find somewhere else to live. This is the last chance you get from me. For a moment, he just stared at me, his face unreadable. Then slowly he nodded. Okay, he said, his voice quiet but steady. I'll do it. I believed him, not because he sounded convincing, but because I saw something I hadn't seen in years. Humility. I placed Grandma June's locket on the desk between us. She always said family can break you, or build you. I murmured, I'm giving you the chance to build. Tyler's eyes lingered on the locket. When he finally stood, he looked lighter. Thank you, he said simply. I didn't reply, just watched him go. The moment the door closed, I let out a long, slow breath. This wasn't revenge. It was reclamation of my house, my history, my power. Weeks passed before I saw Tyler again. This time, he showed up with paint on his hands and exhaustion in his eyes. The good kind, the kind that comes from real work. The roof's fixed, he said, almost proudly. I found a job at the hardware store. It's not much, but it's steady. And I made my first rent payment. I nodded, keeping my expression calm, even as something warm flickered in my chest. Good. Keep going. He hesitated at the door before leaving. You know, he said, voice low, I thought losing that house would kill me. But I think you saved it. Saved me, too. When he was gone, I sat back in my chair and looked out at the block again. The late afternoon light washed everything in gold. The storefronts, the sidewalks, even the house that had once been my greatest heartbreak. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one sitting in her car with trash bags and tears. She felt far away now, like a stranger I had once known. I reached for Grandma June's locket, holding it in my palm. Her photo smiled back at me, wise and steady, as if she had known all along where I'd end up. Her words echoed in my mind. Build your own roof if you have to. I smiled, closing the locket gently. Roof built, I whispered again. And then some. Outside, people walked the block, kids laughing, neighbors chatting, life spilling out onto the street I had claimed as my own. This wasn't just revenge. It was redemption. And as I watched the sun set over the block that bore my name on every deed, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. I stood, pressing a hand to the window. My cousin took my house, I said softly, the words rolling like a final line in a story. Then I smiled, a slow, certain smile. Now I own the block.